Hello everybody. It is winter time, and typically winter time in my garage is usually project time. So we've got an Infiniti M45 sitting on jack stands. We've got an Infiniti M56 sitting on jack stands. For this M45 I'll be doing a lot of suspension and brake related work, so that's why the wheels are off and everything. This one here will be on a different level. I'll be doing engine replacement. But while looking in the garage, I recall that every once in a while I get questions from people like, what is the safest way to lift and secure your vehicle? So today's video will be discussing the Infiniti M45, and this should apply for all the Nissan Y50 vehicles in the US, the M35 and M35X, M45, M45X from 2006 through 2010. While the car is already sitting on jack stands, so I will not be going through the step-by-step process of lifting the vehicle, but I do have various videos in the past where I've pretty much done that. I've shown you guys the process of me raising the vehicle. Maybe I've pointed out in certain, in isolated instances that this is where you lift it, but I wanted to show you what usually works for me. And it's a little different because the factory, the manual tells you that if you're lifting it with a car lift, you can just put one of them under here on this side of the car, and the front one over there, at a certain point you actually have the receivers, right? And then you lift the car up. But then this is for your typical garage, I guess your average person with a home garage. You don't really have a car lift in your garage. So what do? Surprisingly, I do have a floor jack over here, and there it is. It lifts decently high, but sometimes I need to get different kinds of help. Right now, it actually has an extension arm because of how deep it goes in there, and I put this mat over here just to make it, okay, there you go, just to, in case it were to whip upwards, it wouldn't go ahead and damage my bumper. Okay, so this is one tool. A floor jack is one of the tools you could use for lifting, but I don't think a bottle jack works very well for this one. But then this one here is your standard issue scissor jack. This is the one that comes with a car, and as you can see over here, it's sitting on some wooden boards. I did that so I could gain a little bit of height, and I'll explain it. So let's start with the front, in case I guess most people would be lifting the front for either fluid service, or if you're doing it just to replace your, service one wheel at a time. It's not too hard to do it. If you wanted to lift the corner, one corner only, it doesn't, and jackstands are usually a good safety measure, but being honest, not everybody uses jackstands all the time. So using the simplest tool, this one right here, the scissor jack, as you can see, stay on the right side of the scissor jack. As you can see over here, you do have a notch, right? Over there. So what you do is come to the car, and it's usually a little past the door. Some cars usually have a piece of tape or something to let you know that this is where the jack goes, but apparently not the M45. So let's see how correct I am. Usually I just go underneath and check, honestly. Alright, so yeah, in this case, let's move the camera out. This is the door, right? But then do you see this down here? You see this notch? Right? So this part right here is made specifically to accept your scissor jack. It's called a pinch weld, right? So right there, and I'll see if I can get a little closer to show you exactly how it engages over here. Okay. I'll make sure it's still focused. Oh yeah, there you go, that works. So the pinch weld, let's look at it. If you look at the bottom of the car, and you'll notice that right around here it is a little swollen, just a little bit. Okay, so that when this guy comes in through here, I need to change the focus just a little bit. There you go. Okay, so this is the part I was talking about. The pinch weld. And you have, I guess, different tools over the years. I've messed with it. And that's why I'm usually hesitant to take my car to the shop sometimes. The tools they use just kind of damage your pinch weld all over. So as you can see, this is what it looks like, right? So come here, center this over the pinch weld, and this, as you can see, even when fully engaged, does not, it has a little bit of a gap from top to bottom, right? So this right here is what you aim for, and you can usually, even with the car all the way down, you can usually gain access to that, and then you jack up your car. So that does it for the front corner. Let's go to the back. Guess I could carry it again. For the back, it's usually pretty accessible, and I could have sworn that I've had an Infiniti M that actually had tape on the rear door to tell you, but oh well. So just like the front, you have a pinch weld over here, and the rear one, for whatever reason, has taken quite a beating, but here it is. Same thing, comes straight, then a notch, second notch over here. This part right here is your pinch weld, and we'll look at it from the other side. You should be able to see that the body does have a little bit of a swelling over here, and this is where your jack will usually contact the vehicle. So that's it. It doesn't have another one in the middle, but I've seen people do different things, have different ways of lifting. But if you ended up using a, whoa, just noticed that this got shredded. I don't know what I ran over there. That's just the body. This is your fuel tank, by the way. This thing right here. So I guess people don't normally get to this point of view of a vehicle, but so this is how you manually lift your vehicle. If you were to use a tool like a floor jack, right? Just make sure whenever you get the floor jack, the adapter is not, you use a pinch weld adapter. Basically, you have something that has a notch in it, so that when you lift, you don't damage that. And I'm guessing that's what happened. Someone used a tool that wasn't meant to go there, like a bottle jack or something with the wrong adapter. Okay, I hope that this video doesn't become too long, but I'll go to whatever lengths to make sure that we do a detailed video. Safety matters, right? Okay, so, and this is what I did. A hokey puck. That's what I use for my pinch weld adapter when I'm using the floor jack, but it works. It's decent. There are better ways to do it. You could buy a machined one. Okay, so that's number one. If you're going to use the basic scissor jack, that's how you lift it. Okay, now the second question comes after lifting it. How do you secure the vehicle, right? So actually, let's talk about the other way to lift the vehicle. If you were interested in lifting the entire front end together, that is, put your e-brake, chock your back wheels, and now you want to lift the nose of the vehicle all at once so that both wheels come off the ground. For example, you're doing stabilizer links, suspension, things that maybe need you to load or equally work on the vehicle on both sides. By the way, suspension tip, please have both wheels off the ground. Sometimes the vehicle ends up loading funny. Okay, so here, what happens is, if you come under the vehicle, and right now my tray is a little saggy, right around here, this guy right here, right? It's right down the middle of the vehicle, by the way, and I just have to attack it from this side, right? So this is the vehicle, come down the middle, and right here there's a really hard spot, and let's get a little closer, see what it looks like. That's it. And it's metal, on this side, on that side. It's a little shorter on this side in that you'll get, you'll impact plastic, but you have quite a lot of metal on that side. And so for here, what I usually do, I use my floor jack whenever I need to lift the front end of the car. Put the floor jack here. The floor jack, I'll release the floor jack from the back, and you'll be able to see what it looks like. It's basically just a flat spot, and the flat spot lifts it up. I haven't bothered to create an adapter or anything, but as you can tell, it does get flattened over time. So, but this is a pretty stable spot to lift your vehicle from. So if you had a floor jack, that's what you do. And as you can see, I've got if you had a floor jack, right? Now, I've got jack stands, and these are big, beefy jack stands. Like, they could probably lift my car way, hold my car at a way higher height. But right now, they're bottomed out. 6-ton jack stands. I got them on a steel from AutoZone. So let me get a little closer, because not many people will be under the car looking at the car like this, so this view probably doesn't make much sense. Let's go to the other side. Alright, so when you lift your vehicle from the front, right, one thing I'd like to say is that usually, because you have wheel here, and as I said, my plastic undercover is sagging, you usually cannot really see exactly what you're lifting. And I don't like to take risks with things like that. I don't want to lift the wrong part of the car and end up damaging my mounts or anything like that, right? Over time, I've gotten pretty good. I know how deep the floor jack will roll in to get to the right spot. But even then, I usually come here and I use the scissor jack to lift the corner just a little bit, and then I get enough space from the front to be able to center the jack where I need it to lift. Okay, and then once lifted, I come here and I use my jack stand. This one here, as I said, it's bottomed out. I haven't lifted it at all, versus the other one there. This is my M56. We'll talk about that later, probably, if there's enough interest, I guess. But here, what I usually come for is this part of the undercarriage, right? So this is your control arm. This is your lower control arm, front lower control arm. This one is your upper control arm. For people outside of the United States, A arm. And so this spot right here is pretty hardy. It can withstand quite a lot of. It's not really moving. I'm not rocking or bouncing the car on it. But then I usually aim for right here. This is where I usually put my jack stands. Depending on your jack stand design, you want to make sure you just spread it out evenly. See this jack stand over here, and I can't show it, but its design is such that it's cupped like this. It has a little bit of a cup to it. And so with that jack stand, what I usually do is I end up turning it at an angle. So the jack stand is not like this. It's not square, right? It's turned at a little bit of an angle. And then I come in here and make sure. So I've talked about this part of the undercarriage, right? But then do you see this other one here? This one is thin, not flimsy, but much thinner. So I do my best to make sure that I don't damage that. And usually sometimes it's a dance trying to make sure that I work whatever jackstand attachment I have up here to make sure that it doesn't fall off. And then what I do, I actually do it in steps. I lower the vehicle slowly, see where it rests, and then probably have to make a few adjustments and then fully lower it. It's something that you have to pay attention to, because there's a little bit of an act, right? You have the vehicle sitting up here, no contact because you've raised it all the way up, and then you feel like you've aimed it, and then you lower it down, and then bam, you end up missing it. So sometimes people usually say this as a joke, like when you're doing brake jobs, sometimes the hardest part or the longest part of doing it all is like just lifting and securing it, depending on the job you're trying to do, right? So for this one, since I'll have it on jack stands for a while and I'm doing suspension problems, I can take, or rather suspension job, I can take as much time as necessary to make sure that it is secure. If I was just replacing a brake, probably wouldn't care about too much of that, right? Just make sure that the jack is here and is secure, and maybe if I do have room, I'll slip in the jack stand, but I do admit that sometimes it gets a little frustrating. Okay, so this is how you deal with the front end of the vehicle. That's how you lift it, that's how you secure it. All right, good. We'll jump to the back. So I've already shown you how you can lift one rear corner, and with these vehicles, mine is a rear-wheel drive model. So whenever you lift the rear, make sure that you have the front secure. Use wheel chocks, or for me, I usually make sure that the front is already sitting on jack stands, so that you, even if you lift the rear, you know where, that's where my locking mechanism is. It doesn't roll off the front. Okay, so rear. Even the manual tells you this, that if you want to raise the entire rear end, which sometimes you have to, you usually have to use the bottom of the, where is it? The bottom of the differential. The rear differential, pumpkin as they call it, is going to be in line with this, with the middle of your wheel, the axle, all the way to the middle of the car, and then it's also in the middle from the back. And usually what I do is this. In the 2008 plus models, it was pretty easy. I just aim by this little feature in the rear bumper, right, and then go right in. So let me remove it. Let me lower it. It's not holding the vehicle right now, it's just the jack stands, but I like to have another. As you can see, it's kind of loose, but in case the jack stand were to fail by some miracle, you know, you'd still have the jack holding it over here. So let me lower the jack and you'll see the cup that I'm talking about. There you go. So this is what that looks like. Just a regular cup. And this one's usually a little trickier, and especially since I've just mentioned that I like to do the rear after doing the front. So sometimes it's usually a dance. What I do is I come back here, raise the vehicle a little bit, raise the wheels, and then put like pieces of wood underneath here to give me like 3-4 inches of clearance. Because when you lift the front, the rear comes down, and when the rear comes down, although I do have a low profile floor jack, sometimes I can never really get it in unless I've already thought about it in advance and lifted it. Alright, so, and when that comes in, this is what I do. Come here, make sure it's centered. This is the differential. This one right here, this is the drain plug. So come here, lift it as best as I can. So since mine is flat, I don't have to worry too much about like what specific point is catching where, but I do like to make sure at least that the plate is not angled awkwardly, right? So come here and then just raise. And you've noticed that this one raises going backwards, right? So it's not too crazy, but it's something to pay attention to. And usually, as I said, I like to, it helps if you've got some help, but sometimes I'm the only one doing it, and I have to come all the way here and look behind the wheel and make sure that my best guess of lifting it is working out. So you've been hearing the banging noises, and this is what's happening. This. So I'm gonna loosen it a little bit, and then put the mat over it so that it does, you know, it's a little bit of weight doesn't go up. I could probably protect it by leaving the longer arm, but then the problem is still need to be able to close my garage. So that's what happens here. Anyway, that's how you raise the rear. And now, how do you secure the rear? All right, this is where it gets a little tricky and kind of work by feel. All right, so the rear of this vehicle has a frame or a rear subframe, brace or whatever, that goes from here. Do you see where this ends? This is the back of the vehicle, right under here. You have a brace that goes from this plastic piece over here is protecting that. It goes from here. It's part of the subframe, right? It goes to the back of the vehicle. So what I do is I come here, and as long as you still have this plastic piece, right? You have one bolt, two. You have a third one back here, all the way back here. So 1, 2, 3, and these are 12mm bolts. You can remove them if need be. But what I usually do is aim for this part right here after removing my wheel. Aim for this part right here, and then pretty much anywhere I got it. There's a bar, as I said, there's a bar over here which is used for, man, it's kind of tricky shooting videos like this, but there you go. I think you can see it now. There's the metal piece that we're working with, or we're trying to work around. There you go. Here it is. Right? You see that the bottom is bolted onto it. I'm trying to show this. There. That's a metal piece we're working with. So here, what I usually do is make sure that this is not all the way at the end over here, because this is just plain plastic at this point. And then, as long as I have this right behind the second bolt, I'm comfortable, because this, as I said, I know it goes from here to here, at least from here to here. So aim for anything in between there and you're fine. And I've been pretty successful. I have to say though, in the past, sometimes what I've had to do is, I think one time I was replacing, I don't know what I was doing in there, but I removed this plastic piece, and when I removed it, I was able to just have the jack a little closer here. But still, this slants a little bit, so you can't just like put the jackstand right on it, you know, so it's a little offset. And as I said, my trick has been using this line as my guide, this line and this bolt. Just put it behind the second bolt and your money. All right, so that's how it works for me. By the way, this is the extension arm for the floor jack, in case anyone's wondering. And yes, in case anyone asks, I already upgraded the brakes in this car, so it is indeed a 2008 Infiniti M45. However, I have done a few upgrades to my braking system. So likewise over here, let's look at this side, make sure that I got this side properly. Yeah, as you can see over here, what you have is, it's a little further back, and I like showing these videos like in real life and don't fake anything. So I've got 1, 2, the third one is all the way there, right? There's the third one, if you can see it. So, but then this one is just a little further behind. On the other side, it was right here. This one is a little further behind, but still, and you'll notice that the other side is a little turned. It's a little tilted. This one here is a little more straight. So, but as long as I get there, I'm fine, right? And I've done so many jobs with these, with my cars on jack stands, that I know, and I do trust my system going forward. And I'm taking the other side, and yeah, sure thing. The front is pretty easy to secure, and as I said, just watch out for this lip over here. Whenever you work it, make sure that when you lower it, you're not pressing, pushing down or bending that lip. Probably not too crazy, nothing structurally bad will happen, but you don't want your load shifting at all when you're under the vehicle, or when the vehicle is off its wheels, because you don't want to end up falling on the rotors, damage your rotors, bearings, or something, or your body itself, So that's it. That's what I wanted to show you. I hope this video is helpful, a little different from what I usually do, and it's something that I noticed that, and my whole purpose with this video series, and whenever I started posting videos, was to help people, help your average person understand that car maintenance doesn't have to be that mysterious, So the people who don't turn wrenches, and they tell me, hey, thanks for making this rather silly video, but it really helps me a lot. So this is for the 2006 through 2010. How do you lift? How do you secure the vehicle? Maybe if I do get some form of interest, I might do the same for the M56. I'm not sure. There's a little bit of a difference here with the M56. Just a little bit. I had to remove the plastic, but I can talk about it a little later. The difference with this one is that, as you can see here, I needed to use 2x4s stacked up, crisscross pattern, and that would get me just a little higher off the ground. But I think I'll buy more jack stands like this, honestly, because those are really, really helpful. I've worked with them like this before, but It's not my number one preference. It just depends on what you're trying to do. I was trying to get as much height as possible because I'll be sliding underneath the car. So definitely, once I'm done with this, I'm going to use them over there. And I wanted to say something else. So I've talked about using boards under the tires to raise the car up a little bit. That's one step. Two, using the boards under the scissor jack to be able to give it a little more height so I can slide the floor jack underneath and actually be able to see all the way there. Okay, that's the second thing. The other thing is that sometimes you're limited as to how high you can go. The floor jack over there can't lift any higher, by the way. This is it. I think at best I can just move this one extra notch, but then you're done. You know, so maybe depending on how determined you're to lift your vehicle up, you might need to employ a jack, you know, your scissor jack, to just kind of lift it up on one side so you can slide your floor jack, your low profile jack, lift it up, use your jack stands, then get like a higher lift floor jack to lift it even higher. But for me, usually this height right here, whatever the floor jack maxes out at, has usually been enough for me to get work done, most of the work that I need. All right, so again, as I said, I hope this video is more helpful than rambling, and I hope that you guys stay safe out there. If you do have questions about the vehicle and safety and all those things, reach out to me. Maybe I have an answer, and if I don't, I might know how to direct you towards getting an answer. All right, all the best, and see you guys on the other side. All right, bye-bye now.